Hello, Michael Swain here, coming to you shortly after Kansas football's 34-23 win over Illinois. And that feels like a very, very big win for this program. And I think we can't even play the results here. I think you have to look at the performance, and that shows you how far this program has come. Top to bottom, maybe one of the most complete performances Kansas has had under Lance Leipold. Yes, the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter weren't very pretty, but I think you have to look at that first half when the game state was close. Kansas dominated. They dominated on the defensive line, they dominated on the offensive line, and they had the best quarterback in the game. And I think that's where we got to start as a quarterback position. Jalon Daniels made his return to the field, and he ramped up over the last 2 weeks or so. And look, there was no rust. I wondered if there would be some rust. You think back to the Texas game last year after Daniels missed about 4 games due to the separated shoulder. There was some rust there. There was no rust on this field on Friday night. Daniels from the get-go looked like the player we saw over the first 4 weeks of last season. And if KU can get that player over 12 games this season, or I guess now 10 after this offense is going to put up mind-boggling numbers. Because you look at the running game. Look at that front five. That defensive line for Illinois has multiple draft picks, potentially multiple first-round picks. And yet KU made them look small, less physical. They opened up holes. You look at the running game, right? 100 yards for Daniel Hishaw on the ground with a touchdown, over 100 yards for Devin Neal with the touchdown. This type of game last year, those running backs don't do that. And I think that speaks to the evolution of this team. It's becoming more physical. That's something the coaches talked about over the course of the offseason, something everybody talked about going into this game. Who was going to win the physicality battle? And that's exactly what Kansas did. And it's impressive. I didn't think it'd happen. I thought there'd be periods in the game where Kansas would be able to do it, and that's why they'd be able to win the game. But I think comprehensively, 75% of the game, KU was a more physical team. And that's really impressive because that's a very physical Illinois offensive line. That's what Brett Bielema wants his team to be. And this is an Illinois team that's going to go make a bowl game. And so to put together that type of performance is super impressive. So I think offensively, just what a game. You know, this was one of the best scoring defenses in college football last year. They returned their entire front seven. The secondary was new, but again, the KU just dominated offensively. The wide receivers were great. The tight ends were really good. Again, if KU continues to get this performance from Jalon Daniels, he's going to put up crazy numbers, and he could live up to that preseason Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year award he won. Now let's get to defense. It's incredible what an offseason can do for a unit, and I think that's exactly what's happened with the defensive line, where guys have come in. Devin Phillips, I think, is the big key. And look, you're not going to hear his name a lot. He's not going to get a lot of tackles. He's not going to get tackles for loss, but he is the anchor for this defense. He took on double teams all game, held the zone, didn't get pushed around. Then you got guys like Tommy Dunn and DJ Withers who come in, developmental guys, right, who have really grown over the first 3 years in their program, and they come out and perform like that. At defensive end, Jeremy Robinson, 2 sacks. He was tabbed as a breakout player, but again, to come out against this offensive line and do that is super impressive. And so overall, KU had 6 sacks. 6. I can't even find the last time they had that happen. I'm still looking. I'll look more later. But that's how impressive this was. And then you look just in the front 7 overall for KU, athletes. J.B. Brown looked great. Craig Young, really good. I think KU's corners looked really good. And now I'll probably got to talk about the targeting calls. Austin Booker's targeting call, I don't agree with. We'll see what happens in terms of it being appealed. Lance Leipold went to bat for Booker after the game, basically said he's never seen a targeting call like that in his career. And think about how long Lance Leipold has been a head coach. So we'll see what happens. I don't agree with that one. Kobe Bryant's, I mean, look, the letter of the law is you can't launch into a player. I think some would argue, well, don't you launch on every tackle? But I think that one's probably going to be harder to overturn. But I think KU looked like they wanted to be the more physical team, and they were the more physical team. So overall, I just leave super impressed. Special teams, you know, Damon Greaves got used once, the punter. Turnovers will do that, but it also speaks to, I think, just the efficiency at which KU's offense operated. Kicking unit, Seth Keller, 2 really important field goals. When was the last time you felt good about a KU kicker? 41 yards, 30 yards. KU's got a good kicker. So now what's next? Well, next up is Nevada, and that's going to be a really challenging game, more so on the back end. There are going to be some weird travel things that go on. We'll cover it this week after Lance Leipold's press conference. But for KU, this is a huge win, and in prime time. Don't forget that. There are a lot of people watching this game tonight. And there are a lot of people that saw KU beat handily a Big Ten team. Pretty big for the program. So those are my quick thoughts. I will obviously have more on Saturday at the podcast with Kevin Flaherty. Check out the website, fog.net. All sorts of coverage, quotes, analysis, thoughts, all sorts of things you could ever want. So make sure you're checking out fog.net postgame for all sorts of KU coverage. And we'll be back with the podcast with Kevin on Saturday, and then we'll do it all again next week.